Hey guys, think of your favorite beaches, your favorite hotel pools, your favorite lakes. Everywhere you love to swim. What makes them great? Is it the color of the water, or maybe it's the perfect temperature? Maybe you can even swim with dolphins. But what about all of the places that you can't go to, or the places where you can but should absolutely never swim in? Like the waters of the world full of massive predators like sharks and crocodiles, or the places that are just so polluted and teeming with strange bacteria. So, join me for today's video. I'm gonna count down the 15 places where you should absolutely never swim. Number 15. Reunion Island. When you think of France, your mind probably immediately goes to Paris. The food, the wine, the Eiffel Tower, it's all pretty fantastic, and for good reason. But it's important for travelers to remember that France also has some gorgeous beaches outside of those major cities. And so, Reunion Island is a small island territory in the Indian Ocean that's about 40 miles long. And while it may be small, it's got a pretty big reputation amongst the locals. The water is a gorgeous shade of blue, and the rocks look like a work of art. It's an incredibly picturesque landscape, but whatever you do, don't go in the water. Not only are the waters of Reunion Island known for their sheer strength, crashing on the jagged rocks around the coast, but the island's waters are also teeming with sharks, and not just a few. There are a whole lot of sharks circling around here looking out for their next meal. And the thing about them is that they know how to hang out in the shallows, where beachgoers are more likely to go for a dip for some relief from the heat. The sharks are pretty smart. They know where the good food is. There was a moment in time not very long ago when the sharks of Reunion Island were responsible for 16% of all shark attacks in the world. If that isn't fair warning to stay the hell out of there, then what is? Number 14. The Pool of Death. The Hawaiian Islands are well known for stunning tropical beaches with summer vibes. Despite all that, there's a dangerous pool in Kauai, Hawaii called the Pool of Death. This scary name explains the hazardousness of the location pretty well, but it hasn't been able to scare the risk-taking visitors away. The Pool of Death is a flooded cave on the coast made of volcanic rock. The accelerated sea waves create a beautiful water flow flowing into this pool, but the power and force a wave carries from time to time unexpectedly is pretty high. Lots of people die here while trying to jump down from the top of the 20-foot waterfall. They either drown in the pool or are thrown into the rocks by the force of the waves. Most people end up with chest injuries, rope burns, perforated eardrums, and sprained ankles. In addition, one teenage girl became paralyzed after swimming here after suffering some serious physical trauma. But a total of 0 Hawaiian locals have died here in the Pool of Death, because not only do they generally know how to swim against the forceful waves and how the waves fluctuate over time, but they also tend to stay away completely. Even with the great danger this place carries, its surroundings still make it a popular destination amongst tourists and local beachgoers alike. But remember, you swim here at your own risk, because not only are the tides and waves intense, but there's no lifeguard on duty to come to the rescue. Number 13. Queensland, Australia. It seems like there's no shortage of things in Australia that want to kill you. Giant jumping spiders, violent venomous snakes, and even a swift kick from a kangaroo can disembowel a human. And that's just on land. While the surf at the ocean may be some of the best in the world, the warm oceans on Australia's coasts are the perfect environments for bull sharks, hammerheads, great whites, and even saltwater crocodiles. But there's another predator that's far more understated yet equally as deadly as any of these sharp-toothed creatures, the box jellyfish. And it's off the coast of Queensland specifically, where these jellies spread their tendrils in the most hopes of ensnaring some unsuspecting prey. They aren't very big, with a diameter of about 5.5 inches, and are typically just as tall. They've got bundles of 7 to 9 tentacles at the 4 lower corners of the bell, each tipped with a finger-like appendage. Their 2 outer tentacles are pinkish, with the inner tentacles more yellow. They can often grow up to be 13 feet long. But these long tendrils are all armed with tiny nematocysts, which both capture prey like small fish and deter predators with their nasty sting. How nasty though? Well, let's just say it's enough to kill a human adult in less than 5 minutes. So seeing as how these little jellies are bobbing about all over the place, it may be best to never swim in these waters. Number 12. New Smyrna Beach. Florida is known for some wacky things that include the weather, the wildlife, and the occasional Florida man. And while it may be a great place for all our grandparents to retire to and soak up some year-round sun on the beach in their beachfront patio, There's one beach that everyone should steer clear from: New Smyrna Beach. It looks great from afar with crystal clear waters, white sands, and fancy boats in the harbor. But things get a little sinister the closer you get to the water, making this one scary beach. As you approach the water, you may notice some strange things floating about in the water. But don't worry, because those are just dorsal fins of all the sharks that like to hang out in the waters of New Smyrna Beach. And at some point, things got so bad that New Smyrna Beach became the shark attack capital of the world. And while these shark-related deaths may have dropped since then, shark bites are still a regular occurrence, with nearly 100 bites being reported over the last decade. Bringing your lunch to a beach is one thing, but becoming lunch at the beach is another case entirely. Number 11. Jacob's Well. Now, I can't forget about the natural pools that form around the Earth, which is why we're going to Jacob's Well in Wimberley, Texas. Jacob's Well is located on an 82-acre preserve that's been enticing daredevils and thrill-seekers for decades. The well is part of a limestone cave system created by groundwater, dissolving and washing away the porous limestone strata for thousands of years. The depth of the waters around Jacob's Well varies, but there's one spot in particular that's the perfect place to jump from the rocks. And don't worry, you'll know it when you see it because the water goes from a nice clear blue to a deep, deep dark blue. That's where you can jump into a 140-foot deep natural pool. And while this place sees plenty of cliff jumpers enjoying the constant 68-degree Fahrenheit water, the area has also been visited by plenty of scuba divers that try to make sense of the underwater cave layout. But all of this has come at a serious cost because this underwater network is so vast, often so dark. A handful of divers have died in an attempt to navigate the world underneath Jacob's Well, which has mostly deterred any future explorations. Number 10. Galveston County Beaches. Everybody loves a good swim at your own risk sign, and unfortunately not many people tend to heed that warning. As we've seen so far, the ocean can be a pretty scary place if you don't know what you're doing or don't respect it. The currents or riptides can easily have their way with you, and the same can be said for ocean predators. But the Galveston County beaches contain something even more nightmarish. All of the beaches in Galveston County, Texas have these signs exactly because the area hasn't been respected by us humans. The waters here are so amazingly polluted that you can be sure to get sick just by touching them. Maybe that cool ocean breeze will even get in your mouth or eyes. A lot of these beaches are contaminated by the water caused by storm runoff and sewer overflow, but I'm not just talking about plastic bottles making things nasty. These overflows are full of fecal matter, which kind of dissolve in the ocean, spreading their bacteria all along the way. It's pretty disgusting. And in 2017 and 2018, 3 beaches in particular in Galveston County, Helen Boulevard, Magnolia Lane, and Red Lion Road had some of the highest levels of pollution in the state. And sure, the levels do change somewhat frequently, but you have to ask yourself if throwing on some trunks and swimming in toilet water is really worth the risk. Number 9. Hanakapiai Beach. Hanakapiai Beach lies in Kauai County, Hawaii, and if you ever manage to get there, then give yourself a pat on the back, because the only way to get there is by going for a pretty crazy hike. But is it worth it? Are all those panoramic views really worth all the trouble? Well, probably not, because Hanakapiai Beach is known for having some pretty mean and pretty unforgiving rip currents that are notorious for drowning swimmers brave yet foolish enough to go for a dip. And while this is an incredibly unfortunate truth, it simply reaffirms that Mother Nature can be pretty unforgiving. And you'll be reminded of the previous swimmers' fates right when you get there, because there's a nice sign warning you of the rough waters. And it even tells travelers just how many people have drowned there each year. Well, with all that said, there isn't actually a rule that says you can't swim there. You just have to remember that there's no one there to save you. So far, almost 100 people have lost their lives to the strong currents, so you've got to ask yourself if you really want to be another tally mark on the warning sign of Hanakapiai Beach. Number 8. Lake Karachay. Alright, leave your bathing suit at home because Lake Karachay is a small lake in the southern Ural Mountains of Russia, and it's the last place on Earth you would ever want to swim. Between 1951 and 1953, the Russian lake was used as a dumping site for the radioactive waste from the nearby Chelyabinsk 65, a nuclear waste storage and reprocessing plant, and the Washington, D.C.-based World Watch Institute would rank it as the most polluted spot on the planet. Yeah, and that's not an easy thing to do either. The level of radioactivity has been measured at 4.44 terabecquerels, which is almost comparable to the entire level distributed across a much larger area by the Chernobyl disaster, all in one lake. And according to the Natural Resources Defense Council, the lake is so polluted that its gross waters will kill a human within an hour. The lake started to dry up in the 1960s, and a 1968 drought combined with a strong wind carried all of that radioactive dust away from the area, irradiating 500,000 people with levels similar to being in Hiroshima during the dropping of the atomic bomb. So one can imagine this created a serious problem the likes of the world never thought they would see again. But lo and behold, radioactive materials, we all know they have a hard time decaying. So in an attempt to prevent the lake from causing any more damage, it was filled with 10,000 hollow concrete blocks between 1978 and 1986 that are meant to keep sediment from shifting. While it's not yet known if the area is possible to clean, some fear that the radiation could eventually contaminate the Techa River and the Atlantic Ocean. So don't swim in it. Don't even swim near it. Stay as far away from Lake Karachay as possible. Number 7. The Great Blue Hole. A spectacle that's best and safely viewed from above. The Great Blue Hole is exactly what it sounds like. It's a great big hole over 1,000 feet wide in the middle of the ocean. It's 410 feet deep, which gives it that deep blue color, which juxtaposed with the crystal clear waters around it, makes it look like the eye of an otherworldly creature that's been lying dormant for thousands of years, just waiting to swallow unsuspecting swimmers whole. But the Great Blue Hole is part of the gorgeous Belize Barrier Reef and Mesoamerican Reef, so it's a huge hotspot for scuba divers. But with a hole that deep, who knows what sort of deep-sea creatures are looking back at you down there. It's widely believed that the hole was formed way back in the Ice Age when a submerged limestone cave system collapsed when the sea levels began to change. If you do manage to swim down into the depths of the Blue Hole, you'll find massive stalactites and stalagmites that help provide researchers with vital information about the climates of the past. So, sure, the Great Blue Hole is a once-in-a-lifetime diving spot, but the true horror sets in when you not only think of just how deep it is, but when you think about all the unknown sea creatures yet to be discovered that are staring up at you without you even knowing. Number 6. Bondi Baths. The Bondi Iceberg Swimming Club is an Australian winter swimmers club located at the southern end of Bondi Beach in Sydney, New South Wales. The swimming club was established in 1929 and has a small museum on the first floor. A unique defining characteristic of the club is a rule that to maintain membership, it was mandatory that swimmers compete on 3 Sundays out of 4 for a period of 5 years. But the pool here has more than just one claim to fame. With the biggest one, it's one of the most beautiful pools on Earth. But it just so happens to be one of the most ill-conceived aquatic attractions imaginable. The Bondi Baths is a swimming pool literally built in the ocean. That means the waves regularly come splashing over the sides and into the pool. It also means that regular, chlorinated pool water is impossible to maintain in the baths, so it's filled with salt water, and achieving the perfect water temperature is near impossible. But to make matters worse, there are even stories of sharks being tossed into the pool during high tide and becoming trapped. And a trapped animal is a scared animal, and a scared animal can often be a very dangerous one. The Bondi Baths may be world famous, but it's probably not the most relaxing or idyllic way to spend a leisurely afternoon. Number 5. Hanakapiai Beach. Alright, this one gets a second nod. Sometimes it feels like there's a million beaches in Hawaii, and that's why so many people go there to visit. It truly feels like paradise. But these are some places where paradise can quickly turn into a nightmare. And one of these is Hanakapiai Beach, a place locals fear to tread. Hanakapiai Beach is one of the deadliest places in the world, and it also happens to be one of the most beautiful. I guess Mother Nature has no shortage of conundrums for us. The beach lies at the end of a steep, rocky 2-mile trail. Its remoteness means that there's no lifeguards and no hope of immediate rescue, so tread there at your own risk. And even if you do make it past a treacherous crag, the beach water will suck you in, chew you up, and do anything but spit you out. The rip currents here are strong enough to pull even the strongest of swimmers into its cold embrace and leave them out at sea. The safest beach is 6 miles away, so there's just nowhere to go once you're in the water. More people have drowned here than any other beach in Kauai, and the bodies of 15 drowning victims have never been recovered. It's a pretty scary place, and a sign stands on the beach with a tally mark for each drowning just to make the danger more realistic for those they think they're tough enough. So far, there's over 80 marks on this sign. Visitors are advised to stay out of the water entirely, but it may be best to avoid the beach altogether. Otherwise, the sign might read 81. Number 4. Kipu Falls. If you go swimming at Kipu Falls, the best possible outcome is that you're only charged with trespassing, and that's if you're lucky. because a visit here also opens up the possibility that you'll never leave the swimming hole alive. Despite being on private land, Kipu Falls has been a very popular swimming spot for decades, appearing in tourist guidebooks since The Secret came out in the 1990s. And despite the private land, the falls are pretty easy to get to. A short walk down a dirt path is all it takes to get to the 20-foot-tall waterfall that empties out from a stream and into a gorgeous pool below. But like so many other entries here, this beauty comes at a steep price, one that's even beyond the law. Kipu Falls has been the site of many injuries and deaths, some of which have been incredibly difficult to explain. Some of the more obvious incidents are related to jumping from the top of the falls, but people drown here without much of an explanation. The waters here aren't all that wild, and so even the most basic of swimmers can wade out. But about 5 people drowned here in a 5-year span. Several Kipu Falls revelers were witnessed swimming normally, only to suddenly become distressed and disappear beneath the water's surface. No one saw them again until their bodies were brought up from the very bottom of the pool. To this day, there isn't much of an explanation, but some have claimed that a mo'o, a reptilian water spirit, is dragging people down and holding them at the bottom. Others speculate that there's a whirlpool at Kipu Falls. Well, whatever the cause of the deaths, the Kauai Visitors Bureau has asked tourist guide publishers to keep Kipu Falls out of their brochures forever. The area is now fenced off to further deter swimmers who will be prosecuted if caught trying to enter the falls, either by the mo'o or by the local authorities. Number 3. The Boiling Lake. Alright, nothing beats a secluded lake, and the same could be said about a natural hot spring. So how great would it be to have a secluded hot spring? And while all of that certainly sounds nice on paper, the next entry on our list takes those notions to the absolute extreme. Dominica is home to a certain mountain lake, hiding away in the natural thickets with pure, clear blue water that's also emitting some serious amounts of steam at all hours of the day. High atop Wat Mountain in Morne Trois Pitons National Park is the Boiling Lake. And boiling is no hyperbole. Jumping in there means either serious burns or death as you're boiled alive. Luckily though, the thick steam emitting from here should be enough to deter all the daredevils. Visitors don't need to stand very close to feel the heat. But if all that isn't convincing enough, the swirling, bubbling storm of churning water at the lake's center confirms without a doubt that the water's been brought to a boil, much like a pot left on the stove set on high. And while this all may look like a witch's bubbling cauldron, the park's boiling lake is all natural, albeit quite rare. This boiling bowl of water has a direct line to the molten subsurface of the earth, with vents pumping scalding steam and gases into the water, heating it to an instant boil. It is quite a sight to see at the top of this misty mountain, and seems to defy the laws of physics as the water is always evaporating thanks to the constant boil. Number 2. Cable Beach. And for the penultimate beach on our list, we are of course jetting back to the insane place that is Australia. Cable Beach in Australia is just under 14 miles long, and it's managed to become the most dangerous beach in the country. Yeah, it's open to the public, yeah, it's beautiful, and the only thing warmer than the sand is the water, but you lounge around here at your own risk. There are even some stretches of the beach that you can't walk along unless you're accompanied by a guide. So what the hell is going on here? Well, Cable Beach is riddled with hungry crocodiles. Gotten so bad that in recent years the corpses of people torn apart by these prehistoric beasts were found in the sand. Yeah, that's never a fun sight when you're hoping to catch some rays down under. There are, however, some parts that are a lot safer than others, and there are still some restaurants and hotels along the coast. Just as long as you stay in these massive crowds, you should be fine, seeing as how the crocs don't care for the masses. But it's when you venture off alone into the unknown that they have a better chance of ensnaring you in their jaws and treating you to their death roll. Number 1. The Red Triangle. California is definitely a great place to live. It's always warm in the southern part of the state, and you'll never run out of outdoor things to do. And the food's not half bad either. And seeing as how it's a huge coastal state, you'll never run out of beaches to visit. And while some may be way better than others, you may want to skip checking out the Red Triangle. California's Red Triangle is made up of about 50 miles of beach spanning from Bodega Bay to San Francisco. It's huge, it's impressive, and it's absolutely beautiful. The triangle itself juts out into the ocean, but it all sounds so great, and so why is it on our list? Well, the Red Triangle is where more than a third of all the great white shark attacks occur. But 50 miles is a lot of beach and a lot of territory for these great whites, and a lot of these attacks are happening in the more heavily populated areas. The sharks know where the people are, that's for sure, but these popular areas are also home to a lot of seals, sea lions, and otters, which makes the Red Triangle one mean buffet for these nasty fish. Sharks haven't really developed a taste for human flesh though, but they have a tough time telling us apart from their usual mammalian prey, so they have zero problem taking a big chunk right out of you. I'll see you next time. Watch our Waves playlist for more top 15 videos about massive waves. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best wave videos.